I'm not sure how many of you know this, but since we have been in this sort of distance learning, home lockdown situation, Fernando has actually become quite the bike rider, and he likes to go out on bike rides to sort of get his exercise for the day. And so here is a graph to trace what Fernando did on one of his long bike rides one day when he went out. And so he generally goes about 15 kilometers from what he's told us, but this one, if you look at this graph, you'll notice that this graph ends at about 10 kilometers, so it was kind of a short ride for him that day. So anyways, looking at this graph, Fernando started at a steady speed of 10 kilometers per hour, and he stayed at that speed for the whole first kilometer, because the first kilometer after he leaves his house is pretty flat. And then he turned a corner, and for the whole next kilometer, he was going downhill. And so he was increasing in speed for that whole next kilometer, and he hit kind of a top speed at that point of 11 kilometers per hour at the end of that second kilometer, right when he hit 2 kilometers. Then, after he hit the bottom of the hill, there was another sort of slight uphill, and so he slowed down at a steady pace for the next kilometer after that, as he went from 2 kilometers to 3 kilometers because he was going uphill. But because he's been riding so much lately, he actually was slowing down at like a steady pace though, because he could still keep himself going. At the end of that 3 kilometer mark, he hit another downhill, and so from 3 to 4 kilometers, that he was riding his bike downhill, and again he was increasing its speed from, he was at about 9.5 kilometers an hour when he was at the 3 kilometer mark, and he increased in speed so that by the 4 kilometer mark, he was at 11.5 kilometers per hour. It was actually a really fast downhill. And then what happened after that actually is that he didn't hit an uphill. The downhill stopped and it went back flat again. And so his speed increased at a constant rate from 11.5 kilometers an hour over the next kilometer of this flat road. So that by 5 kilometers into his ride, he was back at his starting pace of 10 kilometers an hour. Well, now came his favorite hill to go down. And this hill, again, was a kilometer long, and he picked up speed for the entire time so that by the time he hit kilometer 6 of his bike ride, he was going 12 kilometers an hour, which was actually the top speed for his entire bike ride. And so from there, there was sort of like a slight uphill grade for the next 2 kilometers. And so for the next 2 kilometers, he also was starting to get a little tired. His speed slowed down steadily, and he went from his 12-kilometer pace from when he was at the bottom of that hill back down by kilometer 8 of his bike ride to 10 kilometers an hour. There was a little hill then back down right before he went back to his house. So from kilometer 8 to kilometer 9, he sped up a little bit. I think it also was just a slight hill, but he was anticipating getting home soon. And so by kilometer 9, he was at 11 kilometers an hour, and he managed to keep that steady pace of 11 kilometers an hour for the last kilometer of his ride, which took him to his full 10-kilometer ride.